Hello, new landlords. Congratulations, you've got your rental property now, and you've put some ads out, and you're probably getting applicants wanting to apply to your rental property. So you're wondering, how do you determine who's going to be the best fit your rental properties? What kind of questions you should be asking, or what kind of questions you should not be asking? I'm going to answer all of that today in this video. It's actually a two-part video, so make sure you watch part 1 and 2. Before we go into the video, if you're on my YouTube channel, be sure to subscribe to the channel. It will help me grow it and to put out more content for all of you. Be sure to hit the like button as well as the bell icon. Thank you so much. Hi, I am Stevenson at Homes by Sun with Remax. Today I'm very excited to bring you this video. It's a topic that I've always wanted to discuss about, is how to pick the perfect tenant from all the applications that you're receiving. And if you remember, in my last video, I mentioned that since I've been doing this for over 20 years, I have developed a lot of intuitions when I screen tenant, and it's something that only comes with experience. So first thing, before we even get into how to screen them, I want to tell you something, is that I almost never ever meet with the potential tenant first. And that's a mistake that a lot of new landlords make, is that they choose to meet with potential tenant first and then look at their information. What happens with that is they get charmed by the tenant, and or by the way they talk, they speak, or by the way they dress. Now remember, scammers also wear suits. So don't be fooled by how the tenant present themselves initially. Always look at the information provided. So do yourself a favor. If you have some potential applicant, narrow down to at least 1 or 2 before you meet with them, if meeting with them is something that you have decided that you want to. In my experience in 20 years, I rarely met with any of the tenant before I rent to them, and touch wood, so far we've been pretty successful in screening. So I don't believe that meeting with them is necessary, but again, that's personal preference. But make sure you don't meet with all of them, but only after you've screened them and narrowed down to the top 1 or 2 candidate. There are 4 pieces of information that I always require at the minimum before I can decide if I'm going to rent to them. The number 1, the most important one, is actually not the credit report. The number 1 is rental application. Now, a lot of people skip that and they just get the credit report or other information. But the rental application is very important because it tells us a few pieces of information that you're not going to find in other documentations. First of all, it's going to tell you that who is actually going to live with them. On the rental application, usually it lists out who is going to be living with them, what are their age. So that information is already there, as well as where they have lived before. Now, you can always get the current address, but it's not often that you're going to be able to find out where they lived before. Now, the rental application actually has a field for that, so you can ask them to fill that out. Make sure you know where they've lived now, where they're living now, and where they've lived before. Also, in terms of occupation, you know where they work now, and you can also ask them to fill out where they have worked before. Now, one of the key piece of information on the rental application is the current landlord reference. This is very important. If they are renting right now, first question you're going to ask is, why are they moving? And if they tell you any story at all, make sure you write that down, write down the details, and see if it makes sense for you. So when I do landlord reference check, I'm going to give you a couple of tips here. When you call that number, I always, when I reach the other party on the other end of the phone call, I always say, explain to them that this is a reference call for so-and-so who's applying for my unit, and I'm here to do a reference check. Do you own a property at and I'll give them the address where it's on the application, but I purposely say either the wrong street number, the wrong street name, or some other information that's wrong, or maybe I misspell the tenant's name, and see if they will catch me. And I'll repeat that mistake a couple of times, because the first time you say it wrong, they might not catch it. But if you keep repeating yourself with the wrong information and they don't correct you, what that tells me is there is a probability that the number that they have provided to you, it may be their buddy. It may not be an actual landlord, the current landlord. So you gotta watch out. And because we have access to the land registry, so one of the first things I also do is to double check the owner's name against what's on the rental application versus what's on the land registry. I want to make sure that the landlord name matches. Now, if you're a personal landlord, it may be very difficult for you to get that information. What's the reference property, the current property owner? So you can ask a real estate agent to help, or you can ask your lawyer to help, see if they can find that information for you. Now, owner records are public records, so you can find that out, and there's no problem with privacy concern because it's public records. As far as their workplace is concerned, when you get the reference information on the rental application, it may have a company name and a person. What I do is I always verify whether the company actually exists. Another good piece of information on the rental application, if you're using one of the standard rental applications that real estate agents use, is that there's going to be a section where you're going to get their consent for credit report for you to conduct your own credit check. That is going to be very important. I'm going to discuss why in the next section. The second piece of information that I always ask of the applicant is their ID, and preferably is a photo ID with an address, because I want to make sure that the person that's actually applying is going to be the person that's going to live there. So the photo ID will give me a picture of them, and it will give me a home address on there, and plus I will have their driver license number. See if that matches what's going to be on their credit report. If that address doesn't match it, you need to ask some questions as to why there's discrepancies. Also check the rental application, see if what they provided you with their current address is the same as what's on the driver's license. Now, there are cases where there's going to be a mismatch. Maybe he or she has moved out of their parents' place. They've moved to a current rental property, but they haven't never changed the address. Or what a lot of people do is they will actually on the driver license put their parents' address for insurance savings. You know, it could be a different city that the parents lived in, and their insurance rate will be a little bit less. So that could be a factor too. So don't just disregard that, but take that into consideration when you look at everything. Now, the third piece of information that is crucial in this whole application process is the credit report, because the credit report is how lenders, like for example, if you were getting a mortgage, is how lenders sees this person as a whole, their financial capabilities, their financial, if they're a responsible person. So as a landlord, you have all of the right to ask for a credit report. Now, on the credit report, there's going to be, we always require a credit report with a score. It's very easy for them to obtain. They can go to Equifax or TransUnion. They can pull their own credit report. Usually, it's a small fee that they pay, or it could be free, but it takes a little while for them to get it because they get it by mail. But if they want it online, there's a fee that they can pay, and they can obtain that right away. Now, when you get it, there's going to be a credit score. Now, you need to decide for yourself what is your baseline credit score that you're going to rent to. Now for me, I usually want someone to be around 600 to 700 is my minimum. If they come in at 650 or below 650, I'm going to ask some questions as to why their credit isn't that high. Ideally, you want somebody to be above 700 because the credit score is ranked out of 900. So you want somebody that's around 750, 700, 750, or even 800. That would be fantastic. Very few people actually have 900. That's hard to achieve. So don't aim for that, but at least set yourself some baseline as to what number you will start to consider. So a couple of things to look at when you're looking at the credit report. Other than the score, you want to look at their current address. There will be an address. You want to match the date of birth, all of that, with the driver license. Hopefully those two matches. And you also want to look at what's their outstanding balance on each of the liability that's showing on the credit report. Usually it shows if they have any loans outstanding, if they have like for example student loans. It will also show the number of credit cards that they have and what balance they carry. If you see that what we're looking for is R1 rating for all of them. If you see some that are R2, R0, you need to ask some questions as to what happened with those credit cards. Maybe they forgot to pay and there's some blemish on them and they're in the process of fixing. So ask some questions and find out why, if there's anything jump out at you or if they have any claims. Also ask them about that. It doesn't mean that you should disregard this candidate. It just means that you need to dig a little bit deeper as to what happened, and hopefully you'll get a reasonable answer and you can move forward from that. Now remember earlier I said why it's very important to get the rental application with their consent to conduct your own credit report on them. I'm going to tell you a story is that just a couple weeks ago someone tried to rent one of my units. What I discovered was that their address on the credit report didn't match the driver license address, and that also did not match what they told me they were living. So with their consent, I conducted my own credit check. Now, the one that they provided to me, they had a really, really good score in the 700. Very fantastic, everything looked good. But when I did my own on them, it came back as they were 450. There were a lot of delinquencies, and so it's a completely different credit report. Although I was able to match their name, and all you need is just a name, date of birth, and an address. You can conduct a credit check on somebody else, but you must get their consent. Now, you don't need the SIN number, and it's something that you are not allowed to ask. SIN number is very optional, and they don't need to provide. So make sure you check everything. And so what ended up happening is we didn't rent to them and they never came back asking why. So it's very strange, but remember, credit reports can be manipulated. You can be given a fake one, so make sure you do your own diligence and verify the information that's provided to you. So the fourth item that I usually ask them is their employment letter. Now, employment letter, remember, is also one of the easiest things to manipulate. They could just grab a logo from a company's website and they can pretty much create their own employment letter. So when you receive the employment letter, make sure you dig around and see if that company actually exists. You can do a simple Google search, or you can go to oncorp.com, and I think it's now changed the name to eCore. You can actually pay, I believe it's $40 to do a corporation search. If that corporation is in Ontario, you can do that, and you can also as well as check if it exists in Canada. And because you want to make sure that whatever company that they're telling you is actually an actual company and not their buddy's company. The other thing is, when you do the reference check, always look up the number from the internet of that company. Don't use the number that is provided to you on the rental application or on the employment letter. Make sure you dig around. They might have changed 1 or 2 digits or something, manipulated it so that it goes to their buddy. When you call to make a reference check, ask for either the manager or the HR person. Don't ask for that employee yet. Just ask for the manager, see if the manager actually works there, as well as ask for the HR department and see if they can verify this person actually holds this title, has worked there for how long, and can sort of back up what claims that they have on the employment letter, as well as their income level. Now, I'm going to also tell you that there are going to be cases where there's no employment letter. So what do you do? Well, you will just have to ask them to provide either a pay stub showing that they're actually getting paid from that company, or some other type of, or maybe their initial employment contract. You can ask for that as well, just to make sure, because not every applicant is able to get an employment letter. So you will ask for other information just to protect yourself and to verify their status. There are going to be other types of information, other types of documents that I may ask for. It really depends on the circumstances of the applicant. If it's a student that's applying and they don't have credit report, I may ask them for, first of all, their passport. I want to make sure that they actually have a student visa and it hasn't expired. I'm going to ask for their school ID. I want to make sure that they're going to the school that they're telling me. If they tell me that they're receiving monthly income from overseas, I would ask if they can prove that. Now, the one way they can prove that is by providing their bank account statement to show that every month they're getting a certain amount from overseas. That's something I may ask for. Now, if it's a new immigrant coming in here and they're applying for work, I'm going to ask for if they have any work permit or work visa that they can actually work in Canada, because the last thing you want is them working in underground economy and they are unable to substantiate their income, and there's going to be a problem with CRA and they're no longer is able to continue to stay at your rental. So those are some of the things I may ask for. It really depends on the circumstances of the tenant. Now, this is part 1 of fact-finding, information gathering. Part 2 I'm going to be sharing with you is how do we use all the information that you've been given to determine if the applicant is suitable for your rental property. So stay tuned, make sure you watch the next part as well so that you can have the full understanding of how I go about screening tenants.